All righty. Well, hopefully we can have a successful class today, even without everybody. So here in South Boston, it is spring break for the Danville people, so have a feeling that some of them decided not to come. Bless your sweetheart. I'm glad. I'm glad both of y'all are here. So we will proceed along as if it's a normal day for us, because it is. I also wanted to tell you all that I finally got the lecture from March 1st to upload. We had to really do some finagling to do that. Apparently we have uploaded so many videos that our folder has gotten full, so I had to publish it to YouTube and then put it back into Blackboard. So when you go to week 8 now, you can go back and look at the recording from March 1st, which was the one that came from here. Now, Tuesday's recording did the same thing at Keysville. I will have to wait till Monday to come in and upload to YouTube and then put it back in. So Monday I'll get the lecture from 3:13 put up in week 10. I'll go ahead and get today's lecture. Hopefully that process will work for today's lecture, but I will have to go back and pick up Tuesday's lecture and get it on Blackboard. And hopefully we have solved the problems there. Also, next week is test week. Okay, we're excuse me, looking at testing on chapters 10 through 13. Those of you that are seated, that I'm actually talking to right now, you all, I'm going to put the test on Blackboard. I'll try to get it up Monday. And you can take it either during the class time, or if you want to take it at home, that's fine. Okay? Or take it here some other time other than class time. But it will have to be done by Sunday at midnight. Okay?
Sunday or next Sunday?
It needs to be done by Sunday at midnight.
This Sunday or next Sunday?
No, next Sunday. Whatever that is, something like the 25th. Yes, that sounds right. Okay, so you all and Daniel, Estes, Christiana, those of you that are sitting at a desk right now, y'all can take it here, at home, wherever. It just has to be done by Sunday, and I will send you out a password for that. I haven't created it yet, so can't get it to you. Now, if you are an online student watching this video, this is a proctored activity, so I will need you to schedule to come in and take the test with your photo ID. So I'll put some information up for the online-only students as some options for them to come in and take the test. But online people should be able to take it starting Monday afternoon up through Sunday. You'll need to go to one of the Southside locations and have that proctored like we did the last test. So this is the last proctored activity. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay? Oh, we do have more tests, but no more. This is the online people only, no more proctored activities. Okay, so I'm going to switch the camera here. You can see my Daniel people. And I'm going to try to share the screen, and we're going to take a look at the PowerPoint first. So everybody here picked up PowerPoints, I guess, and you all had them in. Let's see what I get when I do this now. Okay, we're looking at the PowerPoint here. What do you all see in there? Seeing what?
PowerPoint.
Okay, good. Still seeing PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right, so chapter 13, kind of a continuation of what we did on Tuesday on influencing. The way this author approaches the topic of leadership, it's just a main component of influencing, where some of the other authors will actually call leadership as one of the main activities there. So this is just a main component of the influencing topic that we're looking at. So we're going to try to define leadership, look at some approaches to leadership which have differed over time. And we see we've really changed the way we deal with being leaders from what we used to. And we'll see that appreciation for the more recent approaches. Talk about decision making, talking about how leaders can be the ones who actually change their organizations, how they should coach, and look at some new concepts out there as well. We have, like you'll see a lot of the same things that we had on Tuesday reiterated in this chapter, but you see a few more theories and things showing up out of this chapter. Okay, so when we define leadership, it's very much like the definition we gave in dealing with influencing. You're trying to get other people to do something, okay? In this case, when we're looking at leadership, we're directing the behavior of others to accomplish some type of objective. So we're trying to direct them into acting certain ways or following courses of actions that we have laid out, but we're doing that through people. So just again, the people part of it is very important. Now I'm going to tell you all, this next slide does not look right to me, because it has the very same thing listed under leadership that it does under management. So I'm going to tell you all that second half under management is wrong, okay? You can just cross those out and I'll give you some things to put in place of that. But let's look at the first column. The whole point of this slide is to show you that leadership is really a subset of management. They are not the same thing, okay? Leading is not the same thing as managing. Leading focuses on behavioral issues. It cares about people that are doing the job, and it focuses on concern for workers as people. Okay, and I'm going to point you to your textbook for the management side so that you'll have something to underline there or replace with words under the management. Page, let's get back here. Okay, page 291 in your textbook. The second half there that says leader versus manager, which is the same title that's on that slide. Again, you want to highlight that leading is not the same thing as managing. If you looked at the slides, you might assume that it is. But if you drop down to the paragraph underneath the indented paragraph there, it does say that leadership is a subset of management. Okay, so that goes along with that first column, the first point there. But it says, following that managing is it's much broader than leading, and it focuses on non-behavioral as well as behavioral issues. So we need to kill that subset of management that's under management. Okay, and where it says emphasizes behavioral issues, you want to say behavioral and non-behavioral issues. And this is just under the management column. Looks like the leadership column's okay, but the management column falls out that subset of management and emphasizes behavioral and non-behavioral issues. If you go on down to the next paragraph on page 291, it says the manager makes sure that a job gets done. So you want to, the third point there is getting the job done. Okay? If it cares about, focuses on people, that belongs under leadership. So management cares about getting the job done. Okay, so and the fourth one, the focus is on concern for workers as people. You will see that that's also part of management, so there is some overlap there between the two. I just don't think the first, second, and third points are exactly correct there. Okay, but if you look at this slide, you will see managers on the left-hand side and leaders on the right-hand side. So they're clearly two different groups, but they can come together, and you can have managers who are also leaders. That's where the two circles cross. Because we can have managers who are not leaders, and we can have leaders who are not managers, but we're focusing in on managers who are also leaders. Managers are also leaders. Now, as I said at the beginning, leadership has really changed over time. As we started out in the working world a couple centuries ago, people used to think that leaders were born and not made. You had to be born a leader, okay? No one could train you to be a leader. And leaders were described based on a set of characteristics. And we saw a lot of inconsistency between the traits that were used to distinguish leaders from non-leaders. And there's still some people who believe that you have to be born a leader, but we have found over time that people can be trained to be leaders as well. Some of the common leadership traits are intelligence, achievement in scholarship and athletics, emotional maturity and stability, dependability, persistence, drive, skills of social and adaptive, and a desire to obtain a status or a socioeconomic position. And people just thought, well, if I possess those characteristics, I will make a good leader. Okay, so in the early approaches to leadership, one of the types that we had was, in addition to that trait, looking at the different characteristics, another one was the behavioral approach to leaders. And that, rather than looking at just characteristics of the leader, it looked at how leaders behave, what good leaders do. And we saw that leaders would exhibit two types of behavior on the next slide there. We had studies in Ohio State and the University of Michigan. The Ohio State studies identified those two behaviors as structure behavior and consideration behavior. Leaders with structure behavior would give well-defined procedures for their followers to do when they're doing their jobs. You know, lay out, this is what you need to do, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's structure behavior. Consideration behavior is more dealing with the relationship between the leader and the follower, and it showed that the good leaders had mutual trust, respect, friendship, warmth in their relationships. If you put those two on a little matrix, this Ohio State studies put the structure down here on the bottom and the consideration on the left-hand side. That ended up giving us 4 leadership styles based on those 2 types of behavior. The top left corner were leaders that had low structure but high consideration for their workers. Underneath that, the leaders had low structure and low consideration. Top right-hand corner had leaders had high structure but also high consideration. And then the bottom right-hand corner had high structure and low consideration for people. And I'm sure today you can still think about people who have been leaders in your lifetime who some of them gave out a lot of detailed directions and were very procedure oriented, so their structure was very high. Others didn't focus on that very much. Okay? Then others seemed to care about the people part a little bit more, yet some really couldn't care less about people. They just want the job to get done. The Lohr International Institute did some research that showed that leaders do need to be trustworthy, honest, able to sit down and collaborate on things. However, their trustworthiness gets ruined when they think that they are these things that are listed here, kind of interesting names there: credit hogs, lone rangers, egomaniacs, and mules. A credit hog is a leader who takes the credit for every good idea that another person has. And I've seen folks like that. I've had some bosses like that. No matter how hard I work, they would take credit for it. The lone ranger is one who works by themselves mostly, not with the other workers. People who rather do the job themselves. Egomaniacs believe that their company success is only going to come through them, through the managers, not through the workers. And then a mule, just what it says, stubborn, inflexible. Okay? I don't know if you know any people that are mules. Y'all know any stubborn people, inflexible people? I dated a couple of them, so I'm sure maybe in your lifetime there's still some out there. Okay, the Michigan studies, University of Michigan identified 2 basic types of leader behavior as well: job-centered behavior and employee-centered behavior. So very much the same type thing as we just looked at in the Ohio studies. We call something a little different. Those that are job-centered focus on the work and how well the subordinate's doing that work. The employee-centered kind of says, well, these people who are working for me, they're not just worker bees, they are actually people as well. So they have personal needs along with work needs. So you can see there's a lot of overlap between those 2 studies. There's basically 2 dimensions of leader behavior: the work dimension and the people dimension. So we're going to show that over time we've gone away from this. You have to be born a leader and focus totally on the job, to more of a leadership style that combines both the work needs and the people needs. So Desirable leadership behavior is associated with emphasis on both structure and consideration. Undesirable is weak in both dimensions. So we all said we could probably identify people that are hogs and mules and egomaniacs and so on. We know that there's all different types of leadership styles out there. Saying I can't really pick out one style and say it's the best, that kind of oversimplifies things, but you really need to look at the styles and link them to different situations. Different styles work in different situations. And so this is called situational leadership, a situational approach. That's just kind of, well, we'll take each one of those as we look at the slides there, but we're going to look at 4 different approaches that are more recent: situational, life cycle, Fiedler's contingency theory, and path goal theory. So I kind of got ahead of myself. The situational approach says that the best type of leadership style means that you've got to look at the situation, and it can vary from situation. Your leadership is going to be a function of the leader, the follower, and the situation is. So it's not going to, one style is not going to apply to every single situation. Okay, the second, the life cycle theory of leadership. Really looks at the maturity level of the followers. Okay, are your followers able to do their jobs independently? Can they take on additional responsibilities to get to success? So the more of these things they can do, the more mature they are said to be. So a manager has to use different the maturity level of their followers. I think of the classroom as a good situation where we have to look at life cycle theory. I have to lead students who are taking their very first class in college differently than I lead students who are in their last semester and are used to everything. Okay, so this is just sort of a little visual life cycle theory of leadership. You can see that it peaks there and then goes back down the more and more mature the followers are. Fiedler's contingency theory said that you need to change the situation to fit the leader's style. Kind of the opposite of situational leadership. This one is saying we're not going to change the style to match the situation. Instead, we're going to change the situation to fit the leadership style. We have leader-member relations, task structure, and position power all playing a part in what the situation is like. And you can see they get into some kind of strange little charts coming up here, but you can see how they identify this next little slide there. A little graph with looks like a Rubik's Cube there, but it's 8 different little options to tell you whether the structure should be structured or unstructured for each one of them. Okay, and then the path goal theory of leadership says The leader comes up with the goals for the follower and then clears out the path and says, go at it. Okay? The followers are responsible for achieving the goals and earning the rewards for doing so. So managers can help out by showing how their performance directly achieves the results that they're trying to get. Okay? Not just showing them how to do their job, but how it is actually relating to the desired results. Directive behavior tells followers what to do, how to do it, but supportive also is friendly with the followers and shows interest in them as human beings. Participative behavior will actually go to the followers and get suggestions from them and help, and they are becoming involved in the organizational decisions. And then achievement behavior sets goals for followers and gives sort of a positive feedback, confidence when they measure up to the challenge. Okay, so how do people who have been deemed to be leaders, how do they make decisions? We had a chapter on decision making already, so how do these people who have already been leaders make decisions? Tenenbaum and Schmidt have created a leadership continuum and that says that managers make successful decisions only if the method they use reflects the leader, the follower, and the situation. Excuse me. So you can see that if you happen to be a leader who is more ball-centered, then the manager is going to use a lot of authority and very little freedom for the followers. So in that case, the manager makes a decision and says, here's what it is, then sells it to the followers. As we move on up, we're getting to the area where they're giving the subordinates more freedom and the manager is becoming less authoritative. The manager presents the ideas and invites questions, presents it, and then says this is open to change, gets suggestions, and then makes a decision, asks the group to make the decision, and then permits the subordinates just to do what they need to do within the limits that the leader has given them. So you've gone from being more boss-centered to more follower or subordinate-centered in this continuum. This is kind of a very quoted type article about leadership, so it's something that's come about fairly recently and has been used over and over again. The forces, again, it's the leader, the subordinate, and the situation that all influence the manager's decisions, not just one. Then we have the EYJ, Broom, Yeton, I don't know if that's Jago or Yago or whatever there, model. That looks at how much participation you should allow your subordinates to make in the decision-making process. Says your decisions should be high quality and your subordinates need to accept and be committed to the decisions that are made. So quite often the theory is that if you allow your subordinates to be involved, they'll be more committed to seeing those decisions go through. They come up with some decision styles, or called A1, A2. The A stands for autocratic, which is the manager making the decision. Moving to C, which is consultative, where the manager actually goes and asks for input from the subordinates. and then to G, which is a group decision where they meet and then as a group make the decision. If you're a visual person, you might like this little decision tree. To me, that's almost too much information right there to blow my mind. So however you prefer to do that, it really points out the same things that we saw on the previous slide. Now, things that are adhere more to this model seems to be more appropriate. The main challenge is the complexity of the model, and just as I said, just looking at it kind of makes my mind hurt. So it is difficult to apply that. Okay, lately you may have also heard the term transformational leadership. Transformational leadership are leaders that help change organization. They actually affect a follower's belief. And you see a lot of charismatic and inspirational type of leaders that change takes place under. I think of Martin Luther King when I think of a transformational leader. He had a lot of charisma. People were drawn to him. He could stand up and talk and motivate you to do something that you may not have been willing to do before. He created a vision, and he built commitment, and then change took place after that. So he had that charisma to keep those that were following him interested and to follow through on his plans. We also have leaders who are coaches. Okay? Coaches tend to listen well. They have patience. They're not hostile. They try to be enthusiastic for people. Kind of, oh yeah, we can do this. You're doing a good job. You know, we'll if you make a mistake, we'll straighten it out. Things will be okay. That kind of type of leadership. And in modern times, we look at leaders focusing on the soul of their followers, and managers focusing on the mind of followers. Kind of an interesting concept there. If a leader is a soul type leader, they're visionary, passionate, could be inspirational, innovative, courageous, experimental. Managers tend to be more rational and problem solving and deliberate, a little bit of the authoritative type approach towards solving problems. We get to this last, or one of the last types of leadership that's been identified recently. And here I am. Okay, I have been identified as a servant leader. Okay, a servant leader is a leader whose role is to help the followers achieve their quest, their personal needs, their aspirations, their interests. This type of person places a high value on service over their own self-interest. They're good listeners, persuaders, they're aware of their surroundings, they're empathetic, stewards towards other people, and I think you find a lot of people in education are servant leaders, where they're trying to help others, in particular students or maybe community members, achieve their needs, and we want to be able to do whatever we can to get their needs. Okay. Level 5 leadership looks at this little pyramid. Hard to read, I know, on the PowerPoints, but when you actually look at the big PowerPoints, you can see level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up the left-hand side there. Blending personal humility with the will to build long-range organizational success as that highest hierarchy there. Other types of leaders can be effective and competent. They can be good team members and so on, but the top level is going to be building greatness through a blend of humility and professional will. Authentic leadership are leaders who are aware of their own perspectives and other people's perspectives. They're confident, hopeful, optimistic, resilient, and of high moral character. Moral courage is the strength to take actions consistent with your moral beliefs. Okay? We all have moral beliefs about things, but are you strong enough to take action on those beliefs? We saw the walk out at some of the schools this week. Some people thought that they had more courage when they were walking out, which meant that they were taking action that was consistent with their beliefs. But unfortunately, a lot of the people who walked out didn't even really know what they were walking out about. So if you ask them, they might say, I'm walking out about safety in the schools. Okay? Well, that's true. Well then, but what's going to give you safety in the schools? Well, we need better gun control. Well, do you know what the gun control laws are now? Maybe I do and maybe I don't. You know, what would you do to change them? And a lot of the people who walked out weren't aware of that. So you saw some deviations of walking out about gun control changing to walking up, I think they called it, just to express sympathy for the 17 victims down in Florida instead. So, you know, I grew up in an era where there was a lot of protest, and we always seemed to gather and express our opinions loudly to the rest of the world. But even I have to admit that sometimes I didn't know what I was talking about. I can remember I grew up during the Vietnam War era, and there were a lot of protests against that war. I knew very little about that war. I really did. You know, I don't think I was well backed in information to be able to stand up and protest that war, although I went to some rallies. Okay. However, I did participate in one protest, and that was a protest for a new library on my college campus. That was the days before Google, of course, but we wanted significant funding for more facilities for us at school, and I actually did protest that. But I did a lot of research without it too, so interesting. All right, so maybe as we've gone through some of these slides, you all have possibly identified where you might be. So back here. I'm not having anything up there. Okay, I see me, but I don't see me up there. So, let's see what I have to do. do you guys see?
You.
Okay, well, the folks here are not seeing me.
They're seeing you in person.
Now they should see, well, they see themselves, I think. Yeah, they see me. Do y'all still see me? Y'all still see me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Not that I want everybody to see me, but I guess that's what we got to do. All right. So as we've gone through this, you might have thought to myself, well, what kind of leader can I be? Okay, or what kind of leader am I already? Okay, in my life. It's pretty clear that we don't believe that leaders have to be born with these traits. We can develop them and we can teach people how to become leaders. Okay, but the type of leader that you are may vary. I told you guys I have pretty much been identified as a servant leader. Okay, identified by myself that way and identified by some other people. I've got one video we're going to look at that maybe help you decide what type of leader you are, or maybe the type that you would like to become. I mean, you may be the next Martin Luther King, charismatic and able to motivate lots of people through your personality, your style, and so on. But then again, you may be like me, more of a kind of a behind the scenes, helping other people get to the point where they are actually achieving their goals. So let's see if I can get to the video. Y'all seeing the video?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Welcome to this whiteboard session on your leadership style. Today I will share 6 different leadership styles with you, as written about by Daniel Goleman. First style is the authoritative leader. The authoritative leader is really good at setting the vision and painting a picture of where we're going. The authoritative leader will not tell you how to get there, but will be inspiring you to follow. So he or she will say, come with me to get where we're going. The next style is the coaching style. When we coach someone, we don't tell them what to do, but we help people to find their own answers. A coaching style is really good to help the individual to unlock their potential. So one of the questions that we may ask in a coaching style is, what are you trying to achieve? How might you get there? What are the first steps you need to take? The first style is the democratic style. You probably all understand what the word democratic means. It means that we share the problem space. In that sense, a democratic leader will always take a step back and announce their leadership role. They will ask people what they feel is the right thing to do. But it has been proven that decision-making by consensus is not the most effective way of finding a good decision. So bear that in mind. The fourth style is the affiliative style. This style is all about harmony. It's a very heart-based style. People come first. You might say, well, when is that ever a good idea? But actually, if you're working with a team that feels a bit unsettled, maybe because the two organizations have merged or something else happened. In that case, people may not be ready to focus on the job because they're too much in their emotional part of the brain. In that case, the affiliative style is really effective. The fifth style is the pace-setting style. So pace setter. I set the standard. I roll up my sleeves and I show how the job is to be done. So I'm not afraid of the getting in there and really working with my team to show them how it must be done. In the long run, that can be quite an exhausting style because I'm here as a leader, I do it, and I expect you to follow. And it doesn't leave a lot of room. It doesn't leave a lot of room for the individual to actually fill in the blanks. The lower style is the commanding style. This is the old-fashioned commander control management style where it is my way or no way. You do as I tell you. This style, as you can probably imagine, is not very effective in the long run because it doesn't leave a lot of room for the individual to perform well, and it's not very empowering. But there is a time and a place where it is appropriate. For instance, in a crisis situation, when the building is burning, I give you direction to get out. And we shouldn't abuse this style because we think there is always a crisis going on. So my question to you now is, which of these 6 styles do you tend to use most of the time? There is a time and a place for each of them, and it's good to mix them up. But it has been proven that the authoritative style and the coaching style are most effective in the long run. The authoritative style, you set the vision, you inspire people to follow. And the coaching style, you help them to find the answers for themselves. Thank you for watching. Please visit us again at
No sound. Oh well. Okay, so did anybody feel like you use one of those styles more than another type of style as a leader? Do you and you notice the names for the different styles change? They, different theorists, different people who write about leadership come up with different names for things, but they're all very, very similar. So, and again, there's no right or wrong, although they have said that you will probably change your styles depending upon the situation. Any of you have children? I have no one with children over here. You sometimes can think of being a parent as being a leader. Are you the kind of parent that says, do this, do that? Or are you the kind of parent that says, let's get together and talk about how we're going to accomplish something? It absolutely depends on the situation, right? If, like he said, your house is burning down, you want to be the kind of parent that says, here, this is what we need to do. Let's do it, okay? But perhaps you're the kind of situation where you're deciding about how much you can use your cell phone. Maybe if you sat down and talked with your children in that situation, you might come to a solution that they buy into a little more better than just saying, you're limited to so many minutes a day on your cell phone. So we've really changed the way that we view leadership over time. Give some thought about what type of leader you are. And then just recognize that sometimes you may have to change that type based on the situation and based on your followers. Some people are going to tend to do what you do or what you want them to do, depending on how you interact with them. Okay? Again, I step back and I think about Martin Luther King. Many people may not have actually marched on Washington unless they had actually seen Martin Luther King as a leader give them that demonstration, give them that speech that motivated them. So, kind of think back about yourself a little bit. This is a lot of what this class has been about, is teaching you the fundamentals of management, but also getting you to reflect on what kind of manager you are or what kind you will be in the future, and recognize that we're not going to tell you any one way that is correct. Anybody have any questions about that?
No, ma'am.
Okay, well, just remember, next week is test week. All of you that are actually talking right now, sitting there, y'all can, I will get it up Monday afternoon. You can take it on the computer anytime through Sunday. Online people, I will have to work with you to proctor. You need to come to one of the Southside campuses and show your ID, and I will do that. I will get this recording. Hopefully the process works that I just went through with the one on March 1st. I'll get that up on Monday. I will get the recording for this past Tuesday up, so y'all can go back and look at those if you need to. But the test is on chapters 10 through 13. Same format as the past. You can join in your books and your PowerPoints and that kind of stuff, but you cannot go outside of the test once you start. Okay? There is no other homework posted for this week, just making sure you read the material. That's right. Okay? Well, have a good weekend, everybody.